Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're taking a closer look at Nebuchadnezzar II. You know, the Babylonian king.
The Hanging Gardens guy, right?
Exactly, the
Yeah.
Hanging Gardens guy.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to his story. He was this incredible military leader, ambitious builder, the whole package.
It's interesting because he wasn't just born into power like some rulers.
Oh,
Yeah, his father, Nabopolassar, actually had a huge part in establishing the Neo-Babylonian Empire.
okay.
He was the one who led the rebellion against the Assyrian Empire, so basically paved the way for Babylon's comeback.
Wow, so Nebuchadnezzar inherited like a kingdom that was already on the rise.
Right.
Makes you wonder, did he feel pressure to live up to that legacy?
It's hard to know for sure, but, looking at his actions, it definitely seems like he was pretty ambitious. I mean,
Yeah.
early on in his reign, he led all these military campaigns. Like, he really wanted to solidify Babylon's power.
Right.
Just think about it. He led campaigns all the way from Gaza and Ashkelon on the Mediterranean
Wow.
to cities in Anatolia.
That's a vast area.
Oh,
Especially back then, right? Like,
Mm.
how did they even manage that?
it really is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. Was he just this, brilliant military strategist?
He was definitely a skilled military leader, no doubt. He
Right.
really understood the importance of strategy, logistics, too, and having a strong, disciplined army. But, one battle really stands out as an example of his strategic thinking.
Oh, which one?
The Battle of Carchemish.
Okay, Carchemish, yeah. Remind me why it was so important.
So this wasn't just some random fight. At Carchemish, Nebuchadnezzar went head-to-head with Pharaoh Necho II of Egypt.
Ooh, a clash of titans.
Exactly. And they were both fighting for control of the Near East. Winning that battle, it wasn't just about military skill, it was a major power shift in the region. It made Babylon the dominant force and sent a very clear message. Babylon was in charge now.
Wow. Sounds like something straight out of a movie.
Oh, yeah. And this was just the beginning for him.
There's more?
Oh, yeah. A lot more. And that brings us to probably one of the biggest events of his reign, the conquest of Jerusalem.
This is the one that always gets me. Jerusalem wasn't just another city. It was a religious and political center with all this symbolic meaning, right?
Absolutely.
So why did he target it? Was it just strategic?
Well, it was complicated. Jerusalem was definitely important strategically.
Mm-hmm.
It controlled key trade routes and could have easily become a base for rebellions against Babylon.
Oh, I see.
But it was also more than that. Nebuchadnezzar really believed he was, chosen by the gods to establish order and spread Babylonian influence. And Jerusalem, with its own strong religious traditions, kind of challenged that.
So conquering Jerusalem wasn't just about territory. It was more about asserting his authority, religiously and politically.
Exactly.
Wow. And we all know the consequence of the Babylonian captivity, right?
Right.
But what about the long-term impact? I mean, religiously and culturally.
The siege of Jerusalem in 586 BCE was brutal. The city was destroyed, Solomon's temple was razed, and thousands of Jews were taken to Babylon as captives.
It's hard to even imagine.
It was a turning point. I mean, it had a profound impact on Jewish identity and religion.
Mm.
They started using synagogues, really solidified the concept of monotheism
Wow.
and the trauma of exile. It's
Yeah.
reflected in their theology, literature, everything. It influenced so many of their key texts and beliefs.
So it wasn't just a historical event. The Babylonian captivity actually caused this huge religious and cultural transformation
Right.
that we can still see today.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. Okay, so we've got Nebuchadnezzar, the military strategist, the conqueror, the reshaper of the ancient Near East. But there's more, right? The buildings?
Oh, yeah. He wasn't just about destruction.
Right.
He was a builder, a visionary. He transformed Babylon into this amazing, magnificent city.
I mean, we've all heard of the Hanging Gardens.
Exactly.
They've always captured my imagination. I mean, to create a lush paradise in the middle of a desert, that's just incredible. But it must have been more than just like a fancy garden.
You're right. The Hanging Gardens were definitely a symbol of his power. But there's this idea that they also represented something deeper. His desire to create a more cosmopolitan empire.
Interesting.
Yeah. The story goes that he built them for his wife, Queen Amytis, because she missed the green landscapes of her homeland.
Uh-huh.
It shows that he was trying to blend cultures, create a space where different traditions could exist together within the Babylonian Empire.
So the Hanging Gardens weren't just a gift to his wife. They were a statement about his vision for his empire.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the gardens. He had this massive building program all over Babylon. He built palaces, temples, huge walls. He wanted a city that would amaze everyone.
So he wasn't just focused on conquering. He also cared about building and beautifying his own city.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder, like, what drove him to do all this? Was it all just for his own glory? Or was there something more to it?
That's a great question.
So we were talking about Nebuchadnezzar's grand vision for Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to make it the greatest city in the world.
He really did.
It's incredible, right? He was balancing military campaigns with these huge building projects. Did the guy ever sleep?
Well, he definitely didn't just sit back and relax even while Babylon was being built up. He kept expanding his empire.
Oh, so the conquering didn't stop with Jerusalem.
Not at all.
What else did he do?
Well, one big challenge came from the city of Tyre.
Tyre.
Yeah, the Phoenician city.
Oh, right, right. They were like the naval superpower back then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They controlled a lot of trade in the Mediterranean, which was a problem for Nebuchadnezzar.
I bet. So what was it like trying to conquer a place like that? Was it a normal siege?
Oh, no. Tyre was tough. It took him 13 years to finally conquer the city.
13 years. Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's longer than the Trojan War.
It really is.
Why was Tyre so difficult to take over?
Well, it was on an island, so they had natural defenses. Plus, the people of Tyre, they were incredible sailors.
So Nebuchadnezzar's army, which was mainly land-based, they had to adapt.
Big time.
So it was a real test, not just of their strength, but their, ingenuity and willpower. What was the point of conquering Tyre, though? Was it just about getting more land?
It was strategic. Taking Tyre gave Babylon control of this crucial trade route, so it boosted their economy and their military power.
Right.
It also showed everyone else that Nebuchadnezzar was a force to be reckoned with.
Like, don't mess with me.
Pretty much.
So he was thinking long term. He wasn't interested in just quick wins. He wanted to build a lasting empire.
Exactly. He wasn't just a warrior king, he was a really good administrator. He knew how important infrastructure, trade, and diplomacy were.
He was a builder not just of cities, but of systems.
You got it.
Wow. So what was life actually like for the average person living in Babylon during his reign?
That's what historians are still trying to figure out.
I bet.
We know that Babylon had a pretty strict social hierarchy, and, their society was based on conquest.
Right.
But there are signs that under Nebuchadnezzar, things were pretty peaceful and prosperous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The city was booming, a center of trade, culture, art. Its architecture was incredible. People came from all over to see it.
So it wasn't all bad for the people living there.
Nope. He actually seems to have genuinely tried to improve their lives.
It's funny how history is rarely just good or bad. It's all mixed up.
It really is. And that brings us to something we haven't touched on yet. Nebuchadnezzar's religious beliefs.
Oh, right. You mentioned he saw himself as a tool of the gods, right?
Exactly. And it wasn't just talk. His piety really shaped how he ruled. He was devoted to the gods, especially Marduk.
Marduk, the patron god of Babylon, right?
That's the one. And he spent a lot of time and resources restoring and expanding temples, including Isagila.
The Grand Temple of Marduk. I've seen pictures. It was massive.
It was. Nebuchadnezzar believed his success came from divine favor, so he felt it was his duty to honor the gods.
He really believed he was serving a higher purpose.
He did. He saw himself as a shepherd, guiding his people according to the will of the gods.
Wow. It's amazing how intertwined religion and politics were. It really makes you think about how leaders' personal beliefs affect the decisions they make, even today.
Absolutely. It's something we still see in the modern world. But going back to Nebuchadnezzar, we've talked a lot about his actions and his legacy, but what do we know about him as a person?
Yeah. What was he like?
It's tough because we don't have a diary or anything, but, we can look at his inscriptions, what other people said about him, and try to piece things together.
Like a historical puzzle.
Exactly. And one thing that stands out is his love for Babylon. He was so proud of his city.
He poured his heart and soul into it.
He did. He wanted Babylon to be the best, and for him, that meant it was a reflection of the god's favor.
So it wasn't just ego then?
No, it was definitely deeper than that. But did that intense focus on Babylon mean he neglected other parts of his empire? It's hard to say for sure.
Right.
He clearly loved Babylon, but he was also a smart ruler. He knew he needed to keep things stable across his whole empire.
So it wasn't just favoritism. It was about creating a system that worked for everyone.
Yeah, and that's why he invested in infrastructure all over the empire, not just in Babylon.
Makes sense. Did he face any pushback? I mean, ruling such a huge, diverse territory, there must have been some rebellions.
There were definitely some challenges.
I bet.
He had to deal with rebellions, especially in the places he'd conquered.
Yeah.
But he was pretty good at putting them down and kept a tight hold on power for his whole reign.
So he was a tough ruler, but also a builder and a visionary.
That's Nebuchadnezzar in a nutshell, a real mix of qualities.
It's amazing he managed to keep things running smoothly for so long, especially with an empire that stretched all the way from the Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf.
It really is impressive. His reign was kind of a golden age for the Babylonian Empire.
His legacy is complicated, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some people see him as a tyrant, while others see him as a great leader. How do we make sense of that?
That's the thing about history, it's never simple. We have to try to understand people in the context of their time.
We can't judge him by today's standards.
Exactly. And when we look at Nebuchadnezzar through that lens, we see someone who was ambitious, ruthless, but also capable of vision and compassion.
He was human, with all the contradictions that come with that.
Exactly. And that's why his story is so interesting.
Definitely. This deep dive has been incredible. We've talked about everything from the Hanging Gardens to the Siege of Jerusalem, from his building projects to what we can learn about him as a person.
We've covered a lot of ground.
But we're not done yet. In the final part of this deep dive, we'll go even deeper into Nebuchadnezzar's own words. We'll take a close look at those inscriptions and try to figure out what he was really thinking and what he hoped for the future of Babylon. Okay, so we spent the last two parts really getting to know Nebuchadnezzar II. The military campaigns, the building projects, the whole shebang.
We've covered a lot of ground.
But now I'm kind of curious. What was going on in his head? How did he see himself?
That's a great question. To figure that out, we have to look at the inscriptions he left behind.
Oh, right, like messages carved in stone.
Exactly. Think of them as like ancient press releases, carefully crafted to send a specific message.
So maybe not a personal diary, but we could still learn something from them.
Oh, definitely. And one thing that jumps out is how much he talks about his piety. He constantly credits the gods for his success.
Especially Marduk.
Oh yeah, Marduk was his go-to. It's like he really believed he was chosen by the gods to rule.
And that belief, did it shape how he actually governed?
Totally. Nebuchadnezzar saw himself as like a shepherd,
Yeah.
chosen by the gods to protect his people.
So it wasn't just about power for him.
It was more about duty. His duty was to keep order, make sure things were fair, and keep Babylon thriving.
So all that effort he put into, building up the city, the infrastructure, trade, it was all part of that.
Yeah. He wasn't just trying to create a beautiful city. He was trying to honor the gods and show them he was worthy of their choice.
It's crazy how intertwined religion and politics were back then.
Right. Makes you wonder if he really believed all that, or if it's just good PR.
It's hard to say for sure, isn't it?
It is. Historians are still arguing about it. It was probably a bit of both. Nebuchadnezzar definitely understood how powerful religion was, and he used it to legitimize his rule. But there are also hints that his piety was genuine.
Oh, like what?
Well, he seemed to really respect tradition, and
Yeah.
there's this sense of awe almost when he talks about the divine.
He wanted to please the gods.
Yeah, it seems like it.
So he wasn't this one-dimensional conqueror, was he?
Not at all. Military genius, ambitious builder, devoutly religious, but also the guy who destroyed Jerusalem. It's complicated.
Yeah, it really makes you think. It's easy to judge people from the past, but...
But we have to remember that things were different back then.
Right.
Conquest, warfare, it was all normal.
And he thought he was chosen by the gods to rule.
Exactly. So, while we can't condone the violence, we can try to understand where he was coming from.
Absolutely. I guess that's the beauty of history, isn't it? It challenges us to look beyond simple judgments, to see things from a different perspective.
You got it. It's all about nuance and understanding the context.
Well, this has been an amazing journey. We've learned so much about Nebuchadnezzar, way beyond the Hanging Gardens.
He was a fascinating guy.
Truly. And for our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the life and times of Nebuchadnezzar II. He was more than just a builder. He was a complex figure who shakes the ancient world. Thanks for joining us, and keep exploring the mysteries of the past.